Welcome to data management, where we are going to look at perfect spreadsheets and how to take a couple of variables of data and do a full analysis on them using everything that you use in the course. So I'm going to do this by just going through some examples and talking about this whole idea of having a perfect spreadsheet. So the base to this assignment is any three variables of data. And this is a great example. You have options of what you can pick. So this person has picked late absences in the first EDSB report. If you were doing baseball data or other sports data or data of your own choice, it doesn't matter as long as you have three columns of data that are all numbers. It can't be any text-based data, and they have to be complete data sets. So regardless of how many people you have, making sure that you have all that data placed in. And then what tends to be best is to just start with your basics, getting your stats. So your one variable stats, your correlations. Of course, with three data sets, you'll always have three correlations because you do it between data set A and B, correlation between A and C, and then the correlation between B and C. And so that covers all of the main components. And then from there, frequency graphs, frequency tables, percent frequency tables, of course, your frequency graphs, and then being able to do your correlations and scatter plots. So at this point, I think it's actually best to not do any more work and to now set up your overall spreadsheet, because we've mainly focused on format of graphs, but the format of the overall spreadsheet matters too. If I zoom in a bit, I should just be able to move these to the side and deal with the graphing later. And then what I'm going to do is take this entire data table, cut it, and then move it up here so that it's in line with the other data tables. Copying tables sometimes doesn't work well. Like, it looks bad, but then if you just go and double click between these columns, it will auto adjust for the size for you. And then it gives us a chance to be able to make a couple of changes too. So I'm going to zoom in just on this table to address a couple of issues here. And the biggest issue, I won't fix this perfectly, but the biggest issue that we have here is that there is an overall title, but there's no subtitles. So I'm going to take this very excellent table and move it all down one. Whenever you move a table, it messes up merge features pretty quickly, and that's fine because all you have to do is go back and just re-click those and merge and center them. Oh, I accidentally moved that. I'll cover lots of what not to do here too. Oh, this just jumped out to me. 2 decimal places for all correlation values. That is a default, no exception to it. 1 decimal place is fine for statistics. I would be consistent. In this case, these are actually percent data, so we can just go and move them over to that too. But the biggest issue we have here is that we have columns of stats and we have no idea what they're for. So because this was very nicely formatted and consistency is the key, I'm going to go and paste those titles here, double click up here to go and adjust the size, and then steal the format from this so that I can go and put in a proper title here. So these would be my one variable statistics. You might want to do something a bit different here just to go and show them as being subtitles for format, but overall this works. So now we have a really good data table. We have the overall title for our statistics, one variable stats, and then our 2 variable stats down here. And it just gives the overall format a cleaner look, because I now have my data table, I have my frequency tables, I have my stats table. And then from here, I can decide, and I always move graphs the wrong way. From here, I can decide where I want to go and place my graphs. The other thing though that I know that we're going to have to fix is an overall title. So I'm going to zoom in again so I can actually make some changes. And so you can do your overall title at the very end, or you can go and, I don't know why this is not working for me right now, but at this point you would want to do an overall title and then go and merge it and highlight that in with all the different values that we have. That often is best done at the very end because I'm not entirely sure whether we want to, how far it's going to go with the different graphs that are there. So now I'm going to go and start placing my graphs here. And I'm being very intentional to try to keep consistent spacing. So if the titles were one blank row in between, I'm going to do the same thing with the graphs. And then here I can go and copy a title, for example, and paste it in and adjust it later. And so this will be for my graphs. And of course, I would have to merge it over top of the entire piece here. So here I have my frequency graphs. I could do the exact same thing over here. I'm going to go and copy this and paste it over into this section so that I can see my scatter plots. And then that's where I would put my scatter plots too. So that is really the key focus when it comes to setting up a well-organized spreadsheet, is to not have it look like it's just scattered all around, but instead to have a logical order using the titles and the subtitles. And there is no one way to do this. For example, decide to go and have their tables on one sheet, and then look down in the bottom left-hand corner here, you can go and add sheets, and you could set up your graphs there. And then this sheet would get renamed to being your data and tables, or whatever else you're going to do there. So if you want to try to put it all onto one sheet, you can, but you do not need to fill every little space here. There's no reason why, for example, a graph has to be jammed into the other spaces that are there. It's fine just to go and leave it and put it into a spot that works for you, whether that's onto a whole other sheet just with the graphs, or whether it's setting up subtitles and having the pieces go from there. So once that's done, you would then go through and just do your best to clean up some of the issues. So I have a title here that I can't read. So either make the title smaller or go and increase the fonts, increase the column width to go and kind of balance things out. Consistency is key. Lots of issues will need to be dealt here with subtitles. So what I would probably do is go and insert a whole other space underneath, and then start highlighting and merging my titles so that I can go and have a subtitle that says frequency tables or percent frequency tables, and then for statistics and all of those other components too. So really good spreadsheet here. This is a good in-process, perfect spreadsheet. All the components are there. What I need to quickly double check is that equations are being used. These are accurate. These numbers make sense. I can see the different portions that have been put there. Great to see the formulas being used for some. Excellent to see the titles being locked in, because what this means is that if you realize that there was an error in the data and you correct it, it'll all get corrected over here too. The other thing I'm noting here, 58, so there's 58 students that were in this data set, so that's a good double check. And then I could always add in another one variable stat up here where I just do a count. And so for example, you would want to format this better, but I'm just going to use a count formula to go and double check whether we have that correct. And so here we have a count of 58, and so it shows me that the frequency tables are all correct at 58 too. The issue here with this spreadsheet is that the individual components are good, but the other portions overall are not. So the individual graph is good, same with down here, and mathematically these parts are correct. Where the problem is coming in is that the whole spreadsheet looks distorted and random. So the best thing that this person could do would be to go and take all these individual graphs, add them onto a different sheet, or to move them over with subtitles. And then from here, they need to take the same fairly effective black, white, and red format and include that in with their tables too. I love this spreadsheet. There's a simplicity about it that works. There are a couple issues. The first thing that jumps out to me here format-wise is the excellent use of titles and subtitles. So right away I have my overall title, and then I have a subtitle, a merged subtitle for each component. So we have the data here, and notice that all the titling is done consistently. So we have the data, we have the stats, we have the frequency tables. This would have been nice to have put into a some kind of table or grid so it looked the same as the other ones, but this is overall very effective. So the issue that I have with this one is that everything is good across the top and then the graphs aren't ideally placed. So I would say that this entire graph portion here could have gone up to the top or just be moved to a whole other sheet. So put all the graphs over here, have the tables here. We just have some strange blank spacing and inconsistency that impacts the overall look to it. But again, each individual component is very effective here. So I'll come back and see if there's another one or two that we can look at. If you find formatting of spreadsheets difficult, this is the way to do it. Go and take each component rather than having them all done in different tables. Take each component and go and have the frequency table for it and then the stats for it. So here's your first variable, your second variable, your third variable. They've all been color coded in to work with the different components that are there. And then you can go and do your other graphing. I brought this example up to show a very common issue. If you do not set up your table, as soon as you have your data table, if you do not set it up with the format table feature to be able to share it, you're going to have an issue. So the first thing you always want to do is format as a table. The font options often aren't great, so you need to go and maybe change it afterwards. But now it's set up for sorting. Because this person did not do that, when they sorted their data, I don't know if you can tell by looking at the data here, it's all been destroyed. So it's sorted in each column, but this person that had a bus ride for 30 minutes is not the person who packs of cigarettes or had a mark of 75. And where that becomes very clear is in the scatter plots. 3 scatter plots, all 100% wrong, because some of these should have a negative slope, some of them are weak. What's happened here is the data set was destroyed.